The Pittsburgh Steelers want their guy at slot wide receiver. So, who is their guy? There's indications that tell us, well, they're going one of two ways. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/all Steelers talk and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. And today we're talking about slot wide receiver and how the Pittsburgh Steelers, quote unquote, want their type of slot receiver for this upcoming season. Omar Khan spoke at the annual league meetings yesterday and said that the Steelers are both interested in free agency and the NFL draft to find, again, their type of slot wide receiver. So it leaves the question, what is their type? Is their type changing? And who are the options that the Pittsburgh Steelers could realistically bring in to be their guy in the middle? For starters, the obvious answer, and the obvious answer that a lot of people are going to jump to assumption with, is a bigger body next to Calvin Austin. The Pittsburgh Steelers have tried with Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool to move them both to slot receiver. Next year, maybe they'll do the same. But at the same time that they were moving Juju and Chase Claypool down, they were trying to mix in Calvin Austin III, which is by no means the same big body type wide receiver that they had last season. So are they looking to do the same this year and add a big body next to Calvin Austin? Or are they looking to add more athleticism, more speed, and more versatility to the inside to make that combination a deadly duo? Many people will say, well, they'd rather have a big body, but I think that they have shown us possibly that they're open to both. So far, the Pittsburgh Steelers have complemented a number of wide receivers, and most recently, they brought in a big man named Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss for a pre-draft workout. Now, Jonathan Mingo is 6'2", 220. He played a little bit of off-ball tight end during his time at Ole Miss. There is no hiding the fact that this dude is huge, and he would be the bulky guy right in the middle of the field for the Pittsburgh Steelers, something that they have been trying to utilize for 2 seasons now, and much like they tried to do with a third outside linebacker and a third safety, they just have a game plan that isn't clicking. Maybe it clicks this season. But Jonathan Mingo seems like an outlier. And while the Steelers, yes, they have their slot guy of years past, and maybe they're going to do the same thing this year, they have shown more interest in different types of slot wide receivers. At the same time that they brought in Mingo for a pre-draft visit, they also set up a private workout with NC State's Thayer Thomas, who did not attend the NFL Combine, who is a smaller guy who's played 6 years at NC State. This guy is your prototypical slot, smaller receiver. At the same time, they have spoken to guys like Jordan Addison, who is, again, a smaller slot receiver, or a guy like Josh Downs out of North Carolina that they have said had the cleanest workout they have ever seen. Jonathan Mingo, as of right now, seems like an outlier. And while he seems like an outlier, I still think there's a strong possibility that is the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers go. But you cannot assume that they are sticking to their game plan, because their game plan was adjusting last year when they brought in Calvin Austin. It was not set to be, oh, we need a bunch of flashy wide receivers. This is Pittsburgh, and the Pittsburgh Steelers love their big bodies outside, and their big bodies that can catch footballs and play physical, and things stay the same. But Omar Khan is a changing person, and he's someone who will change a lot of things about this team. And while Mike Tomlin likes his big bodies, Omar Khan realizes that, well, the NFL is a fast game with fast players, and Calvin Austin is a fast player. So now it's about finding the perfect mix. There are free agents. Jarvis Landry is a name that continues to pop up, but as Derek Bell said on our podcast a week ago, maybe Jarvis Landry is a little washed. It's been going on 4 years since Jarvis Landry has hit a 1,000-yard season. Last year, he played just 9 games. He caught 25 passes for 272 yards. The year before that, he played just 12 games. He caught 52 passes for 570 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's been a while since Jarvis Landry has been that elite force. He's 30 years old, and at this point, you got to wonder if he's more of a filler piece or a full-time option. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, yes, they have Calvin Austin, and I have very high hopes for Calvin Austin, but I don't expect them to look for an option that comes in here and just plays filler. So at the same time, while Jonathan Mingo is a realistic option for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think we could eliminate a guy like Thayer Thomas to come in here and actually compete for a job. I take that back. He will compete for a job. Will he play meaningful downs all season long? No. And while the Steelers are going to put attention into a guy like Mingo, and I think that's the focus because that's the two sides of the coin here. It seems to be the rest of the field and Jonathan Mingo. There are other options, and the Pittsburgh Steelers will explore these other options. And yeah, maybe you can make the argument that a tight end can play slot. Connor Hayward can play slot. They have options there. But it seems like the NFL draft is the way to go. And it seems as if the NFL draft has one side of the coin that they are pushing very heavily, and then another side of the coin, which seems to fit the Pittsburgh Steelers mold, but the options are not there. Even in the later rounds, you look at the flashy talent. You look at the guys that have stood out, that have made noise. You have Marvin Mims seems to be at the top of that list. Marvin Mims is not a big guy. Marvin Mims is another example of a smaller, quicker, speedy slot receiver. Josh Downs, who I think, and I put in my mock draft yesterday, is the Steelers pick at 32 and makes a lot of sense because he's a speedy guy who can play outside and inside. And the Steelers, whether they want to admit it or not, are entering a phase of the NFL where speed kills. It has killed for a long time. And the NFL draft is evolving. You're not going to find those Chase Claypools as much as you used to. Even the guys in the first round. And I get that this NFL draft is different. The talent is not there, especially the upfront talent. Those first round guys are not as explosive or as exciting as they've been in years past. But it's going to be hard to find a Chase Claypool the further we get along in the NFL's development. And while the Steelers would love to have another Chase Claypool, one that actually worked out, one that put the physical attributes on display on the field at all times, chances are they're going to have a harder time finding that guy than they are going to find another Deontay Johnson or Calvin Austin or Gunnar Olszewski type player who's just this speedy guy, an Anthony Miller type guy. But I also think that at the same time, that is acceptable in the Steelers offense. And I'll tell you why. Deontay Johnson is a certain type of player. People want to bring up playing him in the slot all the time. He's the perfect X for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He doesn't play nearly as well as he plays on the outside on the inside as he does on the outside. He's not a slot guy. When it comes to contact, he's not the greatest. There are a lot of flaws when it comes to Deontay Johnson playing slot. But at the X, he is the perfect guy. He's the most open wide receiver in football. He is a quick, twitchy guy. There's nobody that runs routes cleaner than Deontay Johnson in the NFL. He is the perfect outside X. George Pickens, on the other hand, while he could play the slot, he contains a lot of ability that many people do not hold. He is capable of doing things in the air that most NFL players are not capable of doing. And to take him and put him in the middle and do what the Pittsburgh Steelers do with their slot guys, and that is to run very short routes where you're looking to get the ball in open space, is not what George Pickens thrives at. Now, can George Pickens use breakaway speed and play physical and make crazy things happen with the football? Yes. Is that where he's utilized best? No. But the Steelers already have those bodies on the outside. They tried to go out and get a guy like Mac Hollins that I'll continue to bring up because I thought that was the perfect fit. A bigger guy who works on the outside but plays very well crossing the middle of the field. I thought that worked perfectly in what the Pittsburgh Steelers were trying to do as a depth option. And I think Miles Boykin is still on the table to bring him back because I think he does the same thing. And in the slot, you have Calvin Austin. And while you want a bigger body, and I think the Steelers possibly go out and find a bigger body, I think that they also go out and their primary target is a smaller guy like Josh Downs, is a smaller guy like Jordan Addison, or is a smaller guy like Marvin Mims, somebody who could come in here play the middle, is explosive as all hell, is just a firework when he touches the football, and has big play capability at all times. And I say this because it allows you to do other things. And those other things are also most likely on the Steelers' agenda. And that is to utilize Connor Hayward for what he is, and that is a tweener who could play everywhere on the field. To utilize Pat Freiermuth for what he is, and that is a phenomenal pass-catching tight end who could play off-ball and in the slot. And then you go out and you draft another tight end. I don't know if it's early or I don't know if it's late. In my latest mock draft, I have Brenton Strange going in the 7th round. But I think it allows you to use Zach Gentry the way that you'd like to use Zach Gentry, use another rookie, and then load up your slot with those big guys. But those big guys are your tight ends. And then you could utilize the talent that's in the NFL draft because, yes, Jonathan Mingo is a very good pickup. And if the Steelers used a 3rd-round pick on Jonathan Mingo or a 4th-round pick on Jonathan Mingo, that's a great pick. No complaints. But if they used a 1st-round pick on Jordan Addison or a 2nd-round pick on Josh Downs or a 3rd or a 4th-round pick on Marvin Mims, and then they utilized Pat Freiermuth and Connor Hayward the way that their abilities showcase best, I think it answers both sides of the coin. And I think the Steelers have more options there. And yes, if they fall in love with Mingo or they fall in love with some big dude on free agency, and I don't think there's anybody left. I don't think there's anybody in the free agency field that you could go out there and get and feel comfortable as a long-term option for the Pittsburgh Steelers who fit, quote unquote, their style of slot wide receiver. And if you're going to change your style, if you're going to switch up how you believe things should be done at the slot position in your offense, you're going to do it with somebody in the NFL draft. You're not going to do it with a 30-year-old Jarvis Landry. So if it's Jonathan Mingo, it's who the Steelers believe fit that big body in the middle. If it's anybody else in the NFL draft, the Steelers realize that they have other options and they have other routes, and they're just loading up on talent. Because when you have a 2nd-year quarterback that they believe in as much as they believe in Kenny Pickett, it does not matter what, quote unquote, your style of wide receiver is. What matters the most is making sure that this guy has so much talent around him that there is no way he does not succeed. So if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you want your guy. But your guy should have different variations. And I think the Steelers are thinking the same thing.